In June 2025, Massachusetts financial analyst Karen Redd was acquitted of murder in one of the state's most explosive trials. What prosecutors alleged was a drunken vehicular homicide would unravel into allegations of law enforcement corruption, evidence tampering, and a far-reaching cover-up. This documentary aims to present an honest and unfiltered account of the case surrounding Karen Reed. Karen A. Redd was a financial analyst from Mansfield, Massachusetts. John J. O'Keefe III, nicknamed JJ or Johnny, was born on 12/08/1975 and was raised in Braintree, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. He graduated from Braintree High School and later Northeastern University, going on to earn a master's degree in criminal justice from the University of Massachusetts, Lowell. Following the untimely deaths of his sister and brother-in-law in 2013 and 2014 respectively, O'Keefe took guardianship of his niece and nephew, with whom he resided in Canton, Massachusetts. O'Keefe was a 16-year veteran of the Boston Police Department. The couple had been in a relationship for approximately 2 years before his death. According to Norfolk County Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally, troubles in the relationship appeared to intensify in the months before O'Keefe's death, including during a New Year's trip to Aruba. In court, one of Redd's lawyers acknowledged that the couple had occasional disagreements, but said they were making long-term plans. On the night of 01/28/2022, Reed's defense lawyer David Yannetti said, the couple seemed fine while out at a bar in a Boston suburb with other current and former law enforcement officers. After leaving the bars, Redd later told first responders she argued with O'Keefe before dropping him off at an after-party at the home of Brian Albert, a now-retired Boston police sergeant who had also been at the bar. The home was located at 34 Fairview Road in Canton. Several people were invited back to the Albert residence after leaving Waterfall Bar and Grill and C.F. McCarthy's, but multiple witnesses testified that neither O'Keefe nor Redd ever showed up. At approximately 6:03 a.m. on 01/29/2022, O'Keefe was found unresponsive on the front lawn of the Albert household. Redd, along with Jennifer McCabe, Albert's sister-in-law, and Carrie Roberts, another friend, had driven through a blizzard searching for O'Keefe after he never came home. They discovered his body lying in the snow outside the Albert residence. O'Keefe was pronounced dead at 7:59 a.m. at a local hospital. An autopsy performed 2 days later found that the 46-year-old had died of hypothermia and blunt force injuries to the head. His manner of death was undetermined. Reed was subsequently arrested and charged with manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene of a motor vehicle collision causing death. The charges were later upgraded to include second-degree murder. Prosecutors allege that she had killed O'Keefe by backing into him with her Lexus SUV after dropping him off at the Albert residence. The prosecution's case centered on the theory that Redd, following a night of heavy drinking, struck O'Keefe with her vehicle and left him to die in the blizzard. Norfolk County Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally described the couple's relationship as increasingly troubled in the months before O'Keefe's death. Lally accused Reed of leaving O'Keefe to die outside the home of Brian Albert on the morning of 01/29/2022. The prosecution portrayed the night as one marked by alcohol consumption and relationship conflict, culminating in a fatal collision. But Reed's defense team alleged that O'Keefe was murdered inside the Albert household and that she was being framed by a group of people that included law enforcement. Defense attorneys Alan Jackson and David Yannetti laid out what they described as an elaborate cover-up during pretrial hearings and throughout the trial. Jackson told the court that Massachusetts State Police was involved, along with people who were in the Albert home that night. Brian Albert, whose brother Kevin Albert was a Canton police detective, was among those the defense pointed to as involved in the alleged conspiracy. The defense portrayed Redd as a convenient outsider, someone without law enforcement connections who could be blamed for O'Keefe's death. According to the defense theory, O'Keefe did enter the Albert home despite witness testimony to the contrary, was killed inside during an altercation, and his body was then moved outside to the front lawn. The defense accused investigators of conducting a biased investigation due to close relationships between law enforcement officials and the witnesses present that night. Albert testified that O'Keefe never came to his house but would have been welcomed with open arms if he had. The defense maintained that the real killer or killers were being protected by those with the power to direct the investigation away from the truth. The case drew national attention due to local journalist Aidan Kearney's investigation of the evidence. His multi-part series, Canton Cover-Up, exposed the close relationships between law enforcement and those who were present at the Albert household on the night of O'Keefe's death. The allegations divided Canton and its nearby suburbs. Residents stormed city council meetings demanding answers. Some accused the local police of a cover-up to protect those at the party on Fairview Road. Others turned to social media forums to discuss the intricacies of that fateful night. A grassroots movement emerged based on the belief among many that law enforcement evidence tampering was rampant in their community. Reed's case became the symbol of that perceived corruption, transforming what began as a local homicide investigation into a broader national sensation. But it was Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator assigned from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, whose conduct would become central to the case. In February 2024, Proctor appeared before a federal grand jury and was stunned to learn that federal authorities had infiltrated his personal cell phone. The discovery revealed a collection of crude and sexist text messages about Reed that Proctor had sent to friends, family members, and colleagues throughout the investigation. In one message, he called Reed a whack job and used an expletive. In another, he wrote to his sister that he hoped Reed would kill herself. While searching Reed's phone, Proctor texted a friend stating no nudes so far. When asked during testimony whether he had ever looked for nude photos of male suspects, Proctor said he had not. He described his messages as juvenile, unprofessional, and dehumanizing. Proctor apologized to the jury for his conduct, but insisted the text did not impact the integrity of his investigation. Defense attorney Alan Jackson portrayed Proctor as a cancer that had infected the entire case. The federal investigation also revealed relationships between Proctor and witnesses. Julie Albert, Brian Albert's wife, had allegedly provided childcare for Proctor's sister. Text messages suggested that one of the Alberts offered to buy Proctor a gift when the case against Red was over. The first trial began in April 2024 at Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham, Massachusetts, with Judge Beverly Cannon presiding. Over 9 weeks, 74 witnesses testified. Jurors were taken to visit the Canton neighborhood where O'Keefe died, and Reed's Lexus SUV was brought to Fairview Road for the jury to view. One taillight was missing, and a small dent was visible on the rear hatch. In June 2024, Proctor took the stand and was forced to read his text messages aloud. His voice was barely audible as he read messages he acknowledged were regrettable. Both sides made their closing arguments on June 25, 2024, and Judge Cannon put the case in the jury's hands. After 5 days of deliberations, the jury submitted a note on June 28 explaining that it could not reach a unanimous verdict. Cannon ordered jurors to continue discussing the case. On July 1, 2024, with jurors still unable to reach a verdict, Cannon declared a mistrial. The jury had been starkly divided. Prosecutors immediately announced their intent to retry the case. The same day, Massachusetts State Police announced that Michael Proctor had been relieved of duty and suspended without pay. In the months following the mistrial, details emerged about a parallel federal investigation that had been running since 2023. The U.S. Attorney's Public Corruption Unit, with assistance from the FBI Boston office, had been investigating allegations that Red was framed for O'Keefe's death by law enforcement and those she and O'Keefe had been drinking with in the hours before O'Keefe was found unresponsive. Multiple witnesses were questioned before a federal grand jury, including the state police detectives who arrested Reed and witnesses for the prosecution. In May 2023, Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey requested that the investigation be transferred out of Massachusetts, citing potential conflicts. The DOJ's Executive Office for United States Attorneys denied the transfer request in August 2023. The federal government provided 3,074 pages of documents from their investigation. The documents included Proctor's offensive text messages, grand jury testimony, and findings from RK, an engineering consulting firm retained by the Department of Justice and FBI. RK concluded that O'Keefe's injuries did not appear to come from a vehicle strike. An FBI analysis of a phone belonging to Jennifer McCabe determined she searched How Long to Die in Cold at 2:27 a.m., hours before she called 911 to report that O'Keefe's body had been found. In February 2025, the federal probe concluded with no charges filed. Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan announced in court that the investigation was closed. Defense attorney Alan Jackson expressed skepticism, stating he had never heard of an investigative agency announcing to the target that the investigation is closed. In March 2025, Proctor was formally terminated by Massachusetts State Police. Colonel Jeffrey Noble made the decision following a Massachusetts State Police Trial Board hearing. The board found Proctor guilty of multiple policy violations, including sending derogatory, defamatory, disparaging, and inappropriate text messages about a suspect in the investigation. He was also found guilty of providing sensitive and confidential information about the case to individuals outside of law enforcement and consuming alcohol while on duty before driving his police cruiser. Proctor appealed his firing to the Civil Service Commission. In October 2025, however, Proctor dropped his appeal after the discovery of thousands of additional text messages on his phone containing racial slurs and offensive language dating back to 2013. Jury selection for Reed's retrial began on April 1, 2025, with Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan leading the prosecution. In a decision described by defense attorney David Yannetti as unheard of in a murder case, Proctor was not called to testify by either the prosecution or the defense. The jury began deliberations on June 13, 2025. On June 18, 2025, after 4 days of deliberations, the verdict was reached. Red was acquitted of second-degree murder and manslaughter. She was convicted only of operating under the influence of alcohol, a misdemeanor. The fallout from the verdict rippled far beyond the courtroom. In September 2024, discipline was announced for 2 people connected to the investigation. Canton Police Detective Kevin Albert, whose brother Brian Albert owned the home where O'Keefe's body was found, was suspended without pay for 3 8-hour shifts, following an investigation that found he behaved in a way that was unbecoming of a police officer and violated department policies about alcohol consumption on the job. Massachusetts State Police announced the same day that Sergeant Yuri Buchanek, who was one of the lead investigators in the case, forfeited 5 vacation days following an internal affairs investigation. Buchanek was in one of the group chats in which Proctor sent the inappropriate text messages. In August 2024, Paul O'Keefe filed a wrongful death lawsuit in civil court against Red, along with Waterfall Bar and Grill and C.F. McCarthy's, the 2 Canton bars that were among the last places his brother was seen alive. On November 18, 2025, Red filed an explosive civil lawsuit in Bristol Superior Court against Brian and Nicole Albert, Jennifer and Matthew McCabe, Brian Higgins, and Massachusetts State Police officials, including Trooper Buchanek, Lieutenant Brian Tully, and Fire Trooper Michael Proctor. The complaint accused the defendants of civil conspiracy, malicious prosecution, civil rights violations, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Reed sought an unspecified amount in damages. The same day, attorneys for the McCabes, Alberts, and Higgins announced plans to sue Reed and journalist Aidan Kearney for defamation. Reed's legal costs had been substantial. She reportedly paid $1.2 million leading up to and during her first trial, with $5 million in deferred legal bills before her second trial began. An online legal fund for Reed raised over $1 million. The case has now evolved far beyond one woman's acquittal. John O'Keefe's killer or killers remain unidentified. The case has exposed critical questions about investigator accountability and evidence handling in cases involving law enforcement officials. Canton Police Chief Helena Rafferty released a statement asserting there was absolutely no evidence of a cover-up in the tragic death of John O'Keefe. At a town board meeting, however, she acknowledged there is a mistrust for the police department in Canton. The discovery of Proctor's text messages has raised concerns about hundreds of other cases he investigated during his 12 years with Massachusetts State Police. Massachusetts State Police vowed to take new steps to improve its investigative processes following the events of the last 3 years. The case became the subject of a Netflix documentary, multiple episodes of 2020 and Dateline NBC, and several podcast series. What are your thoughts on investigator accountability and what it means for public trust in law enforcement? Share your perspectives in the comments below. If you found this documentary informative, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more in-depth explorations of often overlooked stories. Who else would you like to see us detail next? Your engagement helps us continue to shed light on otherwise unheard narratives.